You know, some ships are lost in storms. Their fates are tragic, for sure, but we know what happened. But then there are the others. The ones that just sail over the horizon and vanish into thin air. Today, we're diving into one of the most baffling disappearances in all of maritime history, the SS Waratah. And this really isn't just a shipwreck story. It's more like a ghost story. A modern ship full of people just completely erased from the ocean without a single confirmed trace. It's a puzzle that has captivated and, frankly, haunted searchers for over a century. And this is the real heart of the tragedy. 211 souls. That's 92 passengers and 119 crew members. Families, travelers, sailors, all just gone. This number turns the mystery from a historical curiosity into a massive human catastrophe.
That's right, they called it Australia's Titanic. And that nickname, it just speaks volumes about the shock and the disbelief that followed when it disappeared. This was a brand new, state-of-the-art vessel. People genuinely believed it was unsinkable. They were wrong.
So what kind of ship just vanishes like that? To really understand the mystery, first we've got to understand the ship itself, the pride of the Blue Anchor Line. Launched in 1908, the Waratah was a beautiful, powerful ship, nearly 465 feet long. She was built for that really prestigious and demanding route between Europe and Australia, and she was decked out with luxury amenities for her first-class passengers. She was, by all accounts, the absolute pinnacle of modern ship design. But here's where the problem starts. See, the Waratah had this dual identity. While passengers were living it up in comfort upstairs, the massive holds below were designed to carry just immense amounts of cargo. And this combination of high passenger decks and deep cargo holds, well, that would become a critical point of concern. And just look at what she was carrying on her final trip. This wasn't just a heavy load, it was a dangerously dense one. We're talking about thousands and thousands of tons of lead and copper. All of this immense weight sitting super low in the ship would have acted like a giant pendulum, making its high passenger decks even more unstable in rough seas. So while the official photos show that this proud, steady ship, the documents from the inquiry later told a very different story. Witness after witness who had sailed on her described a vessel that felt top-heavy, with this strange, sluggish roll that took way too long to correct itself, even in calm seas. It was a ship that just felt wrong. And this brings us to one of the most chilling pieces of evidence in the entire mystery. This is the actual text of a telegram sent by a passenger named Claude Sawyer. Now, Sawyer was an engineer and a very experienced sea traveler, and his instincts were absolutely screaming at him.
Sawyer didn't just have some vague bad feeling. He described the ship's slow, ponderous recovery from each roll as deeply, deeply unsettling. It got so bad that he was plagued by nightmares of the ship capsizing. So, convinced of the danger, he got off the ship at its very last port of call, Durban, South Africa. He even tried to warn other passengers, but they wouldn't listen. His decision saved his life.
So, Sawyer's decision to get off in Durban saved his life. But for the 211 people who stayed on board, their journey continued into a gathering storm and into history. Let's try to piece together the ship's final frantic hours from this trail of fleeting and mysterious clues. Okay, this timeline. This is our entire investigation. At 6 a.m. on July 27th, the Clan McIntyre watches the faster Waratah pull ahead. That's the last time anyone can say for certain they saw her. But then, things get very strange. That evening, the crew of the Harlow sees a ship in trouble, billowing smoke, then two bright flashes like explosions, and then nothing. Later, in a raging storm, the Guelph signals a ship and gets this fragmented reply, just TAH. Was it the Waratah? We'll never know for sure. All we do know is that 2 days later, the port at Cape Town waited and waited.
The Waratah was officially missing, and what followed was one of the largest sea searches of its time. A desperate, desperate hunt for a ship that had seemingly become a ghost.
It's really hard to imagine now, but the initial reaction was pretty calm. I mean, this was a brand new, powerful ship. The going theory was that her engines had probably failed and she was just adrift somewhere, waiting to be rescued. The idea that she could have sunk was, at first, just unthinkable. But as days turned into weeks, the alarm grew and grew. The Royal Navy was called in. The ship's owners, the Blue Anchor Line, chartered a whole other vessel, the Sabine,
just to look for her. You had ships from multiple nations zigzagging across thousands upon thousands of kilometers of ocean. The search was absolutely massive and utterly desperate. And then, this moment of incredible but heartbreaking hope. I mean, can you imagine the scene in the Australian Parliament as this cable is read out loud? Everything stops. Town bells start to ring. For a brief, shining moment, the entire world thought those 211 people were safe. But it was a false alarm. The ship that was sighted was not the Waratah. The silence that followed must have been just deafening. So here's the crucial point. After all that searching, after all that hope, what did they find? Absolutely nothing. Zero. Not a single confirmed life preserver, not one piece of a lifeboat, not a plank of wood, not a single body. A 9,300-ton ship had been completely erased.
So, with no wreckage and no survivors, investigators and the public were left with only one thing: theories. So let's look at the enduring question of what could have possibly happened here. The official attempt to solve this puzzle was a massive 14-month-long court of inquiry in London. They heard testimony from the shipbuilders, from previous passengers, from the crews of the ships that might have seen her last. They were determined to find an answer. And the court's final verdict? Well, they concluded that the Waratah was dangerously unstable, or top-heavy, just as Claude Sawyer had feared. They believe that in a storm of exceptional violence, which was reported in the area, she simply rolled over too far and, unable to recover, capsized and sank in an instant. This would explain why there was never a distress call. But the official verdict isn't the only game in town. Let's look at the main theories. You've got the design flaw, which the court favored and lines up with what witnesses like Claude Sawyer said. Then there's the rogue wave theory. I mean, that coast is notorious for monster waves that can just swallow a ship whole. That would definitely explain the lack of wreckage. And finally, the explosion theory, which comes from those two bright flashes the crew of the Harlow saw. Could a boiler explosion have ripped the ship apart? The problem is, each theory explains a piece of the puzzle, but none of them solves it completely. So in the end, we're left with images just like this. A proud ship steaming confidently out of port, completely unaware that it's sailing towards its own oblivion. It's just a haunting final image of a vessel on the very verge of becoming one of the sea's greatest mysteries. And that is the question that remains, isn't it? Despite all the searches, even with our modern technology, the final resting place of the SS Waratah and the 211 souls aboard remains completely unknown. It's a really powerful reminder that for all our technology, the ocean remains a vast, mysterious, and sometimes unconquerable force.